As the candles flicker. Winter, when nights grow long, we come together under these lights. A team, united by purpose. Fans, bound by passion. Each holding a small flicker of hope in their hands. At SportsGrid, we believe that even the darkest nights can't dim the unity we share. One team, one stadium, one shining moment. This holiday season, we shine brighter together. Happy Hanukkah from all of us at SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What?
How do you do this once?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
He's blocked well and tries to cut through the middle. Oh!
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Pop one of those gold coins in there. Oh, baby!
Oh, welcome into Sports Millions here over on the grid. I'm Joe Madden, joined by Tom Vecchio. Now, Tom, we've got a great game to unpack to start the show. We're going to look at the Green Bay Packers taking on the Minnesota Vikings. This is an exciting matchup between two NFC North rivals here. There's implications for the playoffs. The Vikings need to win this week and next week, controlling their own destiny. The Packers want to win for seeding reasons. Are you excited for this one?
Absolutely. This is an awesome game. Like, this is what we should be getting in the final few weeks of the season. Two teams, two awesome teams, fully healthy, full motivation to play and win, like you said, for various reasons, whether it's seeding, one team wants to jump ahead of the other, whatever it might be. But at the end of the day, they both still have motivation to play and win. Everyone's ready to go. I'm ready to go. You're ready to go. Let's get to it.
Yeah, the Vikings coming in hot, winning their last 8. The Packers winning 5 of their last 6. At the end of the day, who do you think wins this one? And does that change how you're betting or picking some of these higher or lower?
Maybe. I think the Packers are coming in with really nice momentum. So are the Vikings. But the Vikings also have to take half a step back. They also have to play the Lions to close out the season. And that is a very, very difficult matchup. So I expect full effort from them. Meanwhile, the Packers, if they come away with this win, they play the Bears in the final week. So if they can get this win over the Vikings, it does set up for them to pick up that extra win and the Vikings to lose next week, which would change things around when it comes to the division. So I am siding with the Packers, but I do expect plenty of production from especially the receivers on the Viking side of things.
Okay, I love where you're going with those receivers. Are you expecting a lot out of both of these teams defensively as well, Tom?
I would have to think so. As much talent as there is on both sides, I want to say we're going to see a little bit lower scoring than most people would anticipate just because of how important this game is overall. So Justin Jefferson is on one side. We have Josh Jacobs, Jordan Addison, et cetera, et cetera. We go down the list, which we'll get to all these players. But at the end of the day, the importance of this game, I think, will shine through, and we'll actually see a little bit less scoring overall. I don't know what your take is on it, but I think the players will get there in terms of their yardage, but maybe not a 60-point type of game.
Yeah, I can only see it going that way if we have overtime come into factor with this matchup here, because I do think both defenses can come out nice and sound. We've seen the Packers really utilize Josh Jacobs in that run game, and taking time off the clock here will be so important to keep Sam Darnold and company off field, because you mentioned that connection with Jefferson is fantastic out there. Let's quickly look at the numbers here for Sam Darnold. I'm not sure if you're wanting to lock in any of these, but we do have 251.5 for his passing yards, 12.5 for his rushing yards, 1.5 for his passing touchdowns, and 21.5 for his passing completions. There's a couple more that you could look at, those passing attempts at 32.5 and the rushing attempts at 3.5. I am leaning here to those passing touchdowns. While I do think that the Packers are going to be strong in their end zone, I also think Sam Darnold, for those short passes off in the end zone, will come into play, and they will be able to get 2 passing touchdowns. So I will take the higher than 1.5 passing touchdowns. What are you liking here for Sam Darnold?
So for Sam Darnold, I don't mind the completions higher than 21.5. Being effective at moving the ball down the field, I think has been one of their strong suits the entire year. I think that's a spot that I will continue to go. The question becomes is, do I trust Sam Darnold, or do I prefer one of his receiving options more? Because at the end of the day, it's only one Minnesota player, one Green Bay player that we're going to be taking. And I have a very clear idea of who I want on the Green Bay side of things. When it comes to the Vikings, we could pick and choose between a few different players. So I think Sam Darnold is fine, but he's just not my favorite in this game.
Okay, so that leads me to, who is your favorite in this game for the Minnesota Vikings? Yeah. Who has that trust?
It's going to be Jordan Addison. And everyone's going to say, oh, what about Justin Jefferson? His number sitting at 86.5. I think that's fine. The 6.5 receptions, I think that's fine. He always finds the end zone. You can go higher than half a receiving touchdown. But the role that Jordan Addison has been playing, I think, is fantastic. His number is sitting at 52.5 receiving yards, so I like that to the higher. The defensive coverage and just the defensive effort that opposing teams have to put on Justin Jefferson has opened up a lot of opportunity for Jordan Addison. And seeing some of these smaller underneath routes where he's picking up 5, 6, 7 targets per game, he's routinely picking up 8, 9, 10, 12 yards per reception, puts Jordan Addison in a great spot to go higher than this 52.5 receiving. So I want to look to him to start. If I will never fault someone for taking Justin Jefferson, I just prefer Jordan Addison in this matchup from what we should be seeing from the Packers defense.
Completely understandable where you're going with that one. Now let's talk the Green Bay Packers here, what we're expecting out of them. We've had lots of players have success as of late. We talked about Josh Jacobs being really strong on the ground, but he's also getting those short passes to him. Yes. And then we have Jordan Love here. Let's jump into Jordan Love and then move over to him. So Jordan Love only has one number that we can look at here, one pick. It's 245.5 for his passing yards. To the higher or lower, I'm kind of nervous for him going higher than this one. If anything, I do think Jordan Love, I would be looking at the lower. I just don't want to lock it in, Tom. Where would you be looking here with Jordan Love?
Yeah, I'm on board with that. The yards, they seem a touch too high, right? They seem a touch too high. And if they do fall behind, they would have to lean a little bit more passing. I think Josh Jacobs is fantastic, but I'm a little bit hesitant on that. Meanwhile, I'm not hesitant when it comes to Josh Jacobs. So again, it's the same thing with Sam Darnold. Like if that's where you end up, I think that's totally fine. Jordan Love, he's played great for the majority of the season. If you want to go there, I will not fault you for that. I just prefer Josh Jacobs in this, especially in what I'm expecting from this game overall. I think he's the answer I want to be siding with. And that does lead us into the discussion about the rest of the Green Bay offense.
Yeah, Josh Jacobs, where are you looking for him? I think he's going to have success in a lot of areas out there on the field. I do like his higher rushing and receiving, but I also like his rushing a touchdown. Oh, higher than a half a rushing touchdown is an option for us out there. He's been so strong at getting in that end zone. We know he's been a target for Jordan Love, either for the pass or the rushing a touchdown. What are you thinking for Josh Jacobs?
Josh Jacobs, 17.5 receiving yards. That's the higher. I love Josh Jacobs in this game. And it comes down to what we're going to be seeing from the rest of the Green Bay offense. And they have, at a certain point, they have too many options in the passing game, at least among the receivers. When we have Reed and Watson and Dobbs and Wicks and Tucker Kraft, who's been playing well, their tight end. They have so many options. It's tough to pinpoint who the ball is going to at times. Meanwhile, on the other side, the Vikings, they blitz at one of the highest rates in the league. Their defensive coordinator, Brian Flores, has been fantastic this year. So if they are blitzing, and I just don't know who to pick when it comes to the receivers, Josh Jacobs at 17 and a half receiving yards has played a fantastic role. We're saying 34, 42, 74. That's obviously a bit much when it comes to receiving in some of these recent games, but up at 58 over this second half of the season. Josh Jacobs in the receiving game this week.
I like that. 17 and a half. That seems a low for his receiving yards. I would definitely look at that to the higher. And you mentioned the defensive players out here, especially for Minnesota. We have a couple of players we could look at there. Harrison Smith, his tackles and assists coming in at 5.5. I do lean to the higher on that one. I think we're going to see some great defensive play out of the Minnesota Vikings in this one. Is there any other players that you would be looking at before we lock in, Tom?
Tucker Kraft is fine. Again, it comes down to who you prefer on the Green Bay offense. For me, I want to lock in Josh Jacobs, the receiving yards higher than that. And then, again, I just personally prefer Jordan Addison on the Viking side of things. If someone wants to go with Justin Jefferson, again, no fault there. One of the best, if not the best receiver in the league. But I want to lock in Jacobs. I want to lock in Addison for this matchup.
I love where you're looking for your players that you're locking in. I'm going to lock in Josh Jacobs as well, but I'm going to look at him for higher than one or half rushing touchdown. And then I'm also going to look at Sam Darnold here, higher than 1.5 passing touchdowns. I think we have a great day, even though it's going to be a lot lower scoring. I think we get those touchdowns on the board. So you guys, we'll be back in the next couple of minutes here. We'll be looking at the Panthers versus the Bucs. So don't go anywhere. Tom and myself will be back in the next couple of moments here on the grid.
Pop one of those gold coins.
As the candles flicker, a new tradition shines. 8 nights of Hanukkah, 8 nights of winning insights.
Like they may come out slow, so you might be able to get a better number. Wow, they're favored.
With SportsGrid, every night is another chance to win.
No pick sixes today, they cover. So let's crunch it up. Let's make it happen. Let's give you our favorite props.
Let your Hanukkah winnings brighten your celebrations. Happy Hanukkah from all of us at SportsGrid.
How do you find some of this great talent that you've brought in, who are still early in their career, might not have a ton of tape on them yet?
I've been around this business, man, for almost 20 years. So a lot of these guys will tell you that I popped into a lot of gyms, sparred, or just worked on the side, or, kind of worked out, just watching. I've always loved this sport, man. I think it's the greatest. And we want to continue to put on the next up-and-coming superstars. We know we got them.
Only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Pop one of those gold coins.
Welcome back to Sports Millions here on the grid. I'm Joe Madden, joined by Tom Vecchio. Now we're going to jump into the matchup between the Panthers and the Bucs. But first, Tom, enjoy Sports Millions Pick'em but hate making picks yourself? Well, Sports Millions has you covered. Head on over and play Sports Millions Blitz'em right now and let the computer do the work. Go to sportsmillions.com/blitz'em to be able to win big prizes without having to make a single pick yourself. That's sportsmillions.com/blitz'ems. Okay, Tom, let's jump into this matchup between the Panthers and the Bucks. We know the Bucks need the Falcons to lose one of their last two games, and they need to win both of those if they're hoping to make the playoffs here. And the Panthers are already eliminated. What are you hoping out of this game?
Hoping to see some yards and some points from the Bucks to start. Like you said, this is a massively important game for them. They need to take care of their own business. They also need a little bit of help elsewhere, from the Commanders over the Falcons. But they need to start with their own game. They need to start taking care of business, and that is beating a Panthers team who is definitely weaker than them, right? The Panthers are absolutely playing better in recent weeks compared to where they were in the beginning portion of the season, getting blown out by 30 some odd points. They're competitive these last few weeks. They took the Bucks to overtime. They were close with the Chiefs. They obviously went to overtime and won against the Cardinals last week. So the Panthers are playing better, but the Bucks are still the better team when it's all said and done. So expecting some points and some yards from the Bucks, but still some positive stuff from the Panthers.
Yeah, the Bucks definitely are the better team here and the more motivated team. They know they can't lose this game here, so I do think we're going to get a full effort out of them. Bryce Young, though, for the Panthers has been solid as of late. A lot of people were really writing him off to start the season, myself included, but with what we've seen out of him as of late, I've been pretty impressed with him out there and just his passion for the game. We have a couple of picks we can look at for Bryce Young, and maybe we won't settle on him here, but his passing yards 219.5, his rushing yards 17.5, and I do think if the Bucks force him out of the pocket, we will see him be able to use his leg. I like the higher on the 17.5 rushing yards. Is there anything you would consider here for Bryce Young?
Yeah, it would absolutely be those rushing yards. Good blitz overall from the Bucks that we could be seeing, like I said, force them out of the pocket. Again, I am expecting the Bucks to win this game. They should be playing from in front, so that will force the Panthers to pass a bit more. Good blitz from the Buccaneers, force them out of the pocket. You said the scrambling yards should be there. Do I want to officially lock that in as my favorite from the Panthers? Probably not. I think going to Chuba Hubbard would be my preferred route since we only can pick one from the Panthers. So that's really where I want to turn things when it comes to the Panthers offense. It would be Chuba Hubbard.
Okay, let's look at Hubbard and the 4 different ways we can go with him. And I don't think there's really a wrong way that you can go with Hubbard out there. I do think he's going to be the main key here for them offensively, eating up those yards on the ground. So his rushing and receiving number coming in at 98.5. I like that to the higher, Tom. You could also look at his rushing touchdowns, his rushing yards and receiving yards all separately. Where would you go with him?
It's keeping it simple with Hubbard, and it's the rushing plus receiving. We've talked about this with different running backs on various shows. It just gives you multiple paths to get there. So it's not just rushing. It's not just receiving. If they get out in front by some capacity, they will run the ball, and Hubbard's been that guy for them. If they fall behind and the blitz gets there, if we're not seeing Bryce Young scramble, it will be some easy checkdowns to Chuba Hubbard. So want to lock in higher than 98.5 rushing plus receiving. He has just been super, super consistent for them this year, and that's where I want to start things on the Panthers side of things.
I love that. I'm going to look exactly there as well, Tom. So when we turn it to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, both of us expecting a highly motivated team to come out to be able to put these points up on the board. But how do we expect these points to come? Is this going to be a run game against one of the worst run defenses in the league, or are we going to see a big one out of Mike Evans?
I think both could be the answer. I am not expecting a whole lot from the Panthers defense, especially on the rushing side of things. And that will lead us to, and not just us, but plenty of people looking to Bucky Irving this week. Very, very easy spot for him. But Mike Evans higher than 77.5 receiving yards. Mike Evans needs 91 yards per game over the final 2 weeks to hit 1,000 yards on the receiving. Obviously, he's a little bit behind the 8 ball because the hamstring injury. He was out for a number of weeks. He has hit 1,000 yards in every single year of his career. And while he may not find this the most important, we've seen Baker Mayfield in various press conference talk that he is very aware of how many yards Mike Evans needs. So let's get Mike Evans going. They'll score early and often with Mike Evans, and that's where we'll see Bucky Irving come in. But I want to go with Mike Evans higher than 77.5 receiving yards. He will hit 1,000 this season.
I completely believe it. And let's be honest, Tom, he could hit higher than the 77.5 receiving yards in the first half of this game, if not that third quarter. I'm expecting him to go closer to 100 receiving yards in this matchup. We talked about the Panthers. We talked about this defense. And while the defense is the worst against the run, it doesn't instill a lot of faith in that secondary against the pass either. So I'm willing to lock him in as well. I love looking at Mike Evans as well for the receiving a touchdown over a half. I like that to the higher. What are you going to lock in for this game?
It's going to be Mike Evans. He had 118 yards a couple weeks ago against them. When that game did go to overtime, take that with a grain of salt, as obviously yards were just a touch higher because it went to overtime. But Mike Evans, early and often, like you said at the top, Bucks full motivation to win this game. They need to take care of their own business, do things right, and then get help elsewhere. But it starts with them coming away with the win. Mike Evans, higher than 77.5 receiving yards, and then we're going to turn to Chuba Hubbard, higher than 98.5 rushing plus receiving. Joe, what do you have?
Okay, I love where you're going. I'm going to look a little different here at Mike Evans. I love that receiving number, but I also like him to be able to get in the end zone. So I want to lock in here higher than a half touchdown for him, receiving touchdown. I think he will get in the end zone. And then I'm going to look at Hubbard here. I think he is the key here for the Panthers to come out nice and strong. 98.5 rushing and receiving for him. I'll lock that into the higher, Tom.
I think we are in for a surprisingly exciting game. Panthers playing better, Bucks full motivation. Maybe the Panthers want to play a bit of a spoiler role. They lost in overtime a couple of weeks ago to them. We're in for a good one this week.
Yeah, we absolutely are. And if any team wants to play spoiler and has the opportunity to really showcase some of their players, I do think it's this Panthers team that will step up more than some of these other teams that look to play that spoiler role this weekend. So you guys, we'll be back in the next couple of minutes. We're going to start looking into the matchup between the Browns and the Dolphins. So don't go anywhere. Tom and I will be back in the next couple here on Sports Millions on the Grid.
As the candles flicker, a new tradition shines. 8 nights of Hanukkah, 8 nights of winning insights.
They may come out slow, so you might be able to get a better number. Wow, they're favored.
With SportsGrid, every night is another chance to win.
No pick sixes today, they cover. So let's crunch it up. Let's make it happen. Let's give you our favorite props.
Let your Hanukkah winnings brighten your celebrations. Happy Hanukkah from all of us at SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results.
What? How do you do this one?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Right here with you on Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never felt more comfortable in this set than I do for this year. I'm ready. I'm just getting angry. The hot takes are going to be here all long, people.
You don't want them to go 13-0 and then lose the first round of the playoff.
Red.
Yeah, this is their last shot. They don't really have anywhere else to go yet. Hot take.
By the time I hit, I guess what, Route 33 up here, that ticket's cashing.
Only on SportsGrid. In the heart of winter, when nights grow long, we come together under these lights. A team, united by purpose. Fans, bound by passion. Each holding a small flicker of hope in their hands. At SportsGrid, we believe that even the darkest nights can't dim the unity we share. One team, one stadium, one shining moment. This holiday season, we shine brighter together. Happy Hanukkah from all of us at SportsGrid.
Pop one of those gold coins.
Welcome into Sports Millions. Welcome back, you guys. Over here on the grid, Tom Vecchio and myself, we're going to jump into the matchup, Tom, here between the Cleveland Browns and the Miami Dolphins.
Yeah, before we get to that, check out the Sports Millions social casino featuring classics, slots, and brand new game concepts. The social casino features the opportunity to win large sweepstake coins, and the games are always free to enter. Go play now at sportsmillions.com/social-casino. That's sportsmillions.com/social-casino. Joe, as you said, we have the Browns, we have the Dolphins on tap. What are you expecting from this game? Because a lot is in the air when it comes to the playoff hopes for the Dolphins.
Yeah, it all comes down to the Dolphins and their chance to stay alive. They need the Chargers or the Denver Broncos to lose their matchups. One of these teams to lose to still have a fighting chance in this. And we know the Browns completely eliminated, 3-12 on the season. I'm not sure how much motivation this team has to come out and play upset. I think the Dolphins should be able to come out nice and strong, be able to move that ball on the Cleveland Browns, whose defense just hasn't been looking like the defense we saw at the start of the season, Tom.
Yeah, like you said, a lot's up in the air when it comes to playoff hopes overall. We're still waiting on the injury news when it comes to Jalen Waddle and what we see from their offense. But outside of that, Tua Tagovailoa is still there. Devon Achane is still there. Tyreek Hill is still there. They should be able to move the ball and put up at least some amount of points or yards overall.
They should be able to. And let's look at Tua. Tua coming out here. He's got two different options we can look at for his picks. 231.5 for his passing yards, 1.5 passing touchdowns. I lean here to Tua to be able to move the ball nicely, especially in the red zone over the Cleveland Browns. I'd be looking higher on his passing touchdowns, the higher than 1.5. Tom, do you have faith in him in the red zone, or would you be looking at him just to move the ball up and down the field?
I would say move the ball up and down the field would be my preferred route if I had to choose between one of them. Again, the Browns defense is not something that I'm particularly worried about. We saw some, good stuff last week from Joe Burrow, moving the ball, falling, throwing touchdown, doing X, Y, and Z. So I have faith in the Dolphins to be able to move the ball. Are we going to exactly get higher than 1.5 from Tua? Maybe, maybe not. So I don't want to go with something that's just slightly more variable. I think the yards are just a touch safer.
Okay, I completely understand. And do you expect him to get that ball to Tyreek Hill? We know how strong Tyreek Hill is at getting that separation out there on the field. I think he should be able to do that with ease on the Cleveland Browns secondary and defense here. 58.5 receiving yards. I love that to the higher, more so than looking at any of Tua's numbers.
That's got to be the play. Again, Jalen Waddle didn't play last week. We're still waiting on final confirmation if he's good to go this week. But at the end of the day, if your playoff hopes are alive, you got to get the ball to your best players. It's just we can't be fooling around anymore. We can't be going to look at some of these secondary options on their offense. We got to get the ball to our best players, and it really should be Tyreek Hill. Now, I know he hasn't been the same player that he has in previous years, piling up the yards every game. But 58.5 receiving yards, if he breaks one off, he could pick up 50, 60 yards on that single play, and then we're looking great.
Absolutely. I love it. And then we do have Achane we can look at here. A couple different ways we can take him. We can look at him for the rushing touchdown, the rushing plus receiving yards, the rushing yards separately, and the receiving yards separately. Is there anywhere you would like to look for Achane?
I really like his receiving yards, and we've talked, doing the rushing plus receiving. It's different paths to get there, but the way they utilize Achane with these quick screen plays, which are essentially an extension of their run game, and when we're seeing 4, 5, 6 catches, not just targets, 4, 5, 6 catches in some of these games for Achane. I love the receiving yards. He should be able to pick them up. Myles Garrett is still on the other side for the Browns, getting after Tua. So I am totally on board with just receiving yards for Achane.
Yeah, 36.5 to the higher is a really strong way to go in this one. Now, I'm not seeing anything right now for the Cleveland Browns players. Are you, Tom?
I'm not, but we can always couple these in with some of the other games that we already spoke about. So if you want to side with Tyreek Hill, higher than 58.5 receiving yards, you can go with Achane, whatever it might be. Add those in with some of the other games, and you'll be ready to roll.
Yeah, I think a really nice way to look at this would be taking Tyreek Hill for his receiving yards higher than 58.5, and then looking at Mike Evans for that anytime rushing touchdown higher than a half, or sorry, receiving touchdown for him, Tom.
Yeah, I'm big on Mike Evans. I always have been. I always will be. They need to win that game. Dolphins also need to win this game. Lock those in.
Okay, you guys, thanks so much for joining us here on Sports Millions on the Grid. Tom Vecchio and myself will be back again tomorrow.